Today, I'm going to be covering my reactions to the Oscars as well as a little New York sports landscape and some NFL free agency. Let's get into it. So first, I'm going to react to NFL free agency, specifically mostly with the New York Giants and the New York Jets. For those who hadn't seen, I had reacted to the Saquon Barkley news. Let's just say I wasn't surprised. And with the Saquon Barkley news, it really kind of started a new era for the New York Giants post David Gettleman. This is the offseason, I think. We're really going, not I think, I know. And we've seen so far is the offseason that Joe Shane is really going to make an impact. You know, when he first got to the organization, it was clearly his idea was similar to what David Stearns is doing now with the Mets and see what he can get out of the talent that was already there. Let's see what Daniel Jones has. Let's see what Saquon Barkley has with a few fringe additions, new head coach, all that, new mindset, all that. I mean, you got a really good season out of the New York Giants. And he said last offseason, okay, let's try to build off of that more. Let's try to get Daniel Jones a better target. And because of a tougher schedule, injuries, some drama with the coaching staff, this past season for the New York Giants was a big disappointment. So this offseason was clearly going to be a fresh take on everything. Joe Shane's fingerprints all over it. He wasn't going to pay a top tier running back. We saw that. Now, Devin Singletary is not as good as Saquon Barkley and maybe got a little bit more money than people were expecting the Giants to pay for a running back, but still not Saquon Barkley money. Devin Singletary, I believe, a 3-year, 19-something, around $19 million contract, as well as the trade for Brian Burns and the Carolina Panthers, which basically was the uh, return package for Leonard Williams at the trade deadline last year. I thought an excellent move and bolstering that offensive line as well. It just seems like the New York Giants are going in a direction where they're going to draft a quarterback because it looks like Daniel Jones is not the option for the future. I think that's pretty clear. Although I'm not ruling out the fact of Jones playing next year for the New York Giants. I actually really expect him to. Maybe even when I say I'm not ruling out the possibility of playing, I mean being the starter. I'm not ruling it out. Depends who they draft this year. If they draft a quarterback in other rounds or the first round. If they trade up, I would assume he would start him, but we will see. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is that it just feels like the New York Giants are going to draft a quarterback with something to do with that number 6 overall pick that they have. And bolstering that offensive line, at worst case, if you're going to go with Jones, gives Daniel Jones absolutely zero excuses because last year the offensive line was banged up at the beginning of the year. Plus, the strength of schedule was really difficult. And, you know, you're going to make Daniel Jones's life a lot easier if he plays. And I still don't even think he's the future option. And you'll have to deal with that eventually. But as far as Saquon Barkley going to the Philadelphia Eagles, there was this big controversy about why are Giants fans upset with Saquon Barkley. I even got some pushback on it too. The reality is, I'm not blaming Saquon Barkley for taking the most money. If Philadelphia was offering him the most money and the Giants weren't going to give him that money, and for years he said he's going to be a loyal Giant, he wants to be loyal to the Giants and blah, blah, blah. The Giants offered him a contract last year. He declined it. They didn't want to give him top dollar. And if the Philadelphia Eagles, who, by the way, are a very desperate team right now, I know that's going to be really, really, it's going to piss off Philadelphia fans, but they're a desperate team. Let's face it. After an amazing start to the year last year, they ended it pretty terribly. Not pretty, definitely terribly. And this is a make or break year for the franchise in their direction. Either are they going to continue building off this success of winning in the regular season, or they're going to go in another direction. I could see either or. But with the addition of Saquon Barkley behind that powerful offensive line, I see Barkley really thriving there. And considering he's very familiar with the area after going to college at Penn State. And, you know, I don't think it's a bad move for the Eagles. However, it's like you're paying a running back, and Saquon Barkley has his injury history, and maybe behind a better offensive line, he doesn't get hurt. But let's just say I wasn't in love with what I saw from Barkley this year. Don't get me wrong, a big reason why the Giants won games in the very few that they did, but big reason why the Giants won games was because of Saquon Barkley. But Saquon Barkley had a lot of weird errors this year, a lot of weird mistakes. The first game of the year, ball simply going right through his hands and to the other team. Weird fumbles that almost costed the game, almost cost that game versus Green Bay on Monday Night Football that Tommy DeVito came back and won for them. Just stuff like that. And, you know, I'm not going to lose sleep over losing somebody that, yeah, helped us. Let's face it, definitely made us watchable or at times, or definitely made us win maybe 5-6 games. One playoff year was hugely responsible for that. But the New York Giants didn't win consistently with Saquon Barkley on the roster. So if you're planning to spend that money in other areas that maybe are more important for the team, you don't want to pay a running back, I'm not losing sleep over it. I'm just not. Okay? It's not like Saquon Barkley was on Giants teams that was constantly, consistently carrying them to the playoffs. Now, I believe he did everything he can, but there's clearly more holes with this roster. And if your solution to that is get a guy that's not as good, but still good in Devin Singletary, and then improve other aspects of the roster while possibly having a fresh starter quarterback, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. And honestly, I was really happy with what Joe Schoen has done so far. Now, listen, in the offseason, usually everybody likes their roster, right? I liked the New York Jets roster last year. Let's face it, a big reason why that didn't work out was because of Aaron Rodgers' injury. Big time, big time. But the offensive line concerns all of a sudden spiked up considerably, right? I liked the New York Giants roster last year, okay? But they didn't have a good year. So a lot of this is on paper stuff. You still got to prove it on the field. I understand that. But so far on paper, I really liked what the Giants did. I like with the veteran quarterback addition, Drew Lock, and we'll see. You know, obviously, I don't think he's going to be too much of a contributor, but considering who's on the team, who's on the roster, you know, considering who may be on the roster, if they're going to draft a quarterback and Daniel Jones is still on the team, I don't think Drew Lock is, you know, considered to be anything crazy. But I will say also to talk about the New York Jets and what they did, them improving their offensive line as well. I don't like losing Bryce Huff, but that's another good addition for the Eagles, getting Barkley and Huff in there. And also, just to go back for the Giants, losing Xavier McKinney, losing that safety. Clearly, again, didn't want to pay a safety. So on paper, you could be like, oh, it sucks to lose that guy. But, you know, there's other aspects. I see what Shane is doing, and I want to wait it out and see. As far as the Jets, losing Huff, not ideal, but improving that offensive line, which is huge, is also a big deal. And, you know, listen, they need to. Oh man, the Jets. I feel so bad because of this Aaron Rodgers drama that's currently out. And if you want to really get into it, like, you know, there's so much nonsense out there with Aaron Rodgers. I expect him to be playing football next year. Nothing crazy. I don't expect him to be the vice president or anything in the upcoming election after the upcoming election is over. I don't expect it. But what I just need from Aaron Rodgers as a New York sports fan, because let's face it, a lot of Jets fans are Nets fans too. So with that, they dealt with the Kyrie Irving situation, and Rodgers hasn't even really played a game yet. Sure, there's been preseason. Sure, there's been 4 snaps in the first game of the year. But it's been a lot of Aaron Rodgers talk, and he hasn't really done anything on the field at all. Not really. He's done nothing, basically. And I don't want to see Aaron Rodgers drama going into the New York Jets season, which is a very critical year for them. Critical. Because Aaron Rodgers has said he'll probably give 2 years if he can. And I think the New York Jets could be very good next year. I think they could be excellent because they went 7-10 with, and even though there was all this talk about, including myself, of criticizing Saleh and Douglas for not getting a veteran backup quarterback. Well, I believe they did that with acquiring Tyrod Taylor, which I thought was an excellent move. And despite Tyrod Taylor's injury issues and stuff, Tyrod Taylor is a major upgrade over what they had, anything they had last year. Whether it was Zach Wilson or Trevor Siemian or Tim Boyle, Tyrod Taylor is a massive upgrade over all of those guys. All of them. So I don't care if he gets injured a lot. It's a huge addition. And it was one of the things the Jets needed to do. Get a reliable, when I say reliable, I mean good, not necessarily injury, right? Tyrod Taylor. I thought it was a good move by Joe Douglas. Boosting that offensive line. Doing that. The defense is very good, okay? And you hope with Aaron Rodgers coming back healthy, a lot of the issues the New York Jets had last year, including a lot of games that they probably should have won. And there were a lot of people saying, I don't know, like including Michael Lombardi saying, like, I don't think the Jets, even with Rodgers, would have been a good team last year. I called complete bullshit on that instantly. I thought they easily could have 10 wins with Aaron Rodgers healthy because there were so many games where the problem was so clearly quarterback, and they lost those games by one score. So whether it was the Raiders, I'm losing track. Oh, the Patriots and all those teams. Okay, no quarterback or incompetent quarterback basically playing in those games, losing by one possession. Give him Aaron Rodgers, give him a reliable, and I mean good, backup quarterback in Tyrod Taylor, better offensive line. With that defense, I think the Jets have a serious chance next year at being a playoff contender and possibly even being more than that. But Aaron Rodgers has to stay out of the nonsense and the tea leaves. Focus on football, please. That's all I care about. And that's what most Jets fans care about. Most all Jets fans. The Jets fans have been struggling for years on how to deal with this lack of making to the playoffs. I mean, the Giants have been an incompetent franchise basically for the last 10 years, and they've made the playoffs twice. Okay, so since their Super Bowl, I mean, the Jets haven't made it since 2011, their AFC Championship appearance with Rex Ryan. Or 2 AFC Championship appearances with Rex Ryan. And they came close with Ryan Fitzpatrick, didn't work out. Last year was supposed to be the year. 2 years ago, almost made the playoffs. Lost it at the end of the year. Last year, same thing. And you hoped it would change last year, but didn't. Aaron Rodgers being out. So for the Jets, stay out of tea leaves. All I got to say. It's the only thing that's going to bring you down before the season starts. If Aaron Rodgers does anything stupid and starts messing with everything. I hope that's not the case. As far as some other moves in NFL free agency I just wanted to talk about was Kirk Cousins going to the Atlanta Falcons. Kirk Cousins coming off a torn Achilles in his mid-30s. He's going to the Atlanta Falcons, who also did not hire Bill Belichick. And I'm not sure what the decision-making process is over there. I don't know what to think about it. Do I expect the Falcons to be better? Yes, they got a better quarterback. But Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles with modern medicine or modern day doctors and recovery, I don't think it should be that big of a deal. But it's just something that I looked at. Russell Wilson to the Steelers. Is he that much better than Kenny Pickett? Maybe. Russell Wilson didn't have a great year. I mean, had moments, but Sean Payton couldn't wait to get rid of Russell Wilson. The Denver Broncos could not wait to get rid of Russell Wilson. Now he's going to a place where there's another really good coach in Mike Tomlin. Will anything change? Not really sure. I'm just not. They'll probably finish 9-8 again. They'll be over 500, and Mike Tomlin can still be considered that, oh my God, this above 500 master. And that's really kind of it. I just wanted to talk about a couple moves in the NFL free agency, more to talk about. I'm gonna wait probably a little bit longer before I really like deep dive into it because there's so much to talk about today. I also want to talk about some things going around in New York sports, the landscape, go through each team. I just talked about the Giants and the Jets. So let's talk about some other teams. It's the NBA season. So I'm going to talk about the Knicks a little bit. Getting OG Anunoby back versus the Philadelphia 76ers. Just massive, massive return for the Knicks. And we talked about it last time. Jalen Brunson can only carry this team for so long. The Knicks injuries can only not affect the team that much for so long. And getting OG Anunoby back is huge. And you hope he could stay healthy. I said they needed to get one of those guys back in order to get through the rest of the regular season. And they have one of those guys back. If they're going to really be a serious threat at going to the conference finals, the NBA finals, though, they need Randall. And I've said that forever. But I think it's great to see the difference between losing 79-73 versus 76er team without Joel Embiid and absolutely beating the brakes off of them in the next game with OG Anunoby. I don't think that's a coincidence. It's nice to have another threat out there. And Anunoby's capable of taking on a larger role offensively. So good for the Knicks. My comments still remain on them in regards to I don't expect them to go to the conference finals without Randall or without Randall not playing well. And I think there's huge questions there. So the Knicks have the ability to lose in the first round, and they have the ability to go to the conference finals. Maybe even squeak past them. But Knicks fans are really confident they can beat Boston. I'm not really sure about that. Boston's roster and Boston in general is just so by far the best team in the Eastern Conference to me. My only question with them is Joe Mazzulla. That's it. To me, there is no excuse why the Boston Celtics can't win the championship this year. They have the best roster, and Brad Stevens has done an amazing job. And I will say that, man, like there was a time in Brad Stevens' last year coaching the Boston Celtics when they basically a gentleman's sweep versus the Brooklyn Nets. It looked like Boston had kind of hit a rock bottom because, wow, we don't know if Tatum and Brown can move. I mean, real rock bottom is Rick Pitino that whole time. But what I'm saying is like, we just been to the conference finals many years in a row, and now we were a 7th seed this year. Are we sure about this Brown Tatum fit? Meanwhile, this team needed a new voice. Ended up being a Doka, but then that switched and then to Mazzulla, obviously. But the roster so much better. They're bigger. They could shoot. I mean, they defend like crazy. It's just a very elite roster, and Tatum has everything he needs. And it's championship or bust for the Celtics. They are scary good. And Knicks fans saying, like, I understand the passion and stuff, but you don't want to face the Boston Celtics in the second round. And if you're a 4 seed, you're going to face the Boston Celtics in the second round. And I don't think you win that, personally. Now, can they match up? Yes, they can, because if you have OG Anunoby, you could put him on Tatum. But what are you going to do with Brown? Drew Holiday also guards Jalen Brunson. Brunson may have listen, Holiday didn't do the greatest job guarding Jimmy Butler last year. Jimmy Butler's also way bigger. Drew Holiday guarding a small guard like Jalen Brunson. Also, you got Porzingis. That whole factor. We'll see what happens with Mitchell Robinson. I don't know if he's coming back. I haven't really been following that news. I don't. It's all fuzzy to me. Is he coming back? Is he not coming back? I have no idea. But as far as the Knicks go, they will be heavy underdogs versus the Boston Celtics. Heavy. And the only way they beat that team is if they outcoach them, which is possible, with Joe Mazzulla as the coach for the Celtics. Tom Thibodeau can easily outcoach him. You need Jalen Brunson to have a monster series, and you need Randall to have a monster series. It's the only way it's going to happen. And that's a huge question mark when you're going against Drew Holiday and you're going against the size of the Celtics. Al Horford, Porzingis. It's going to be hard for Randall to kind of just get his buckets. And that's very important. So that's what's going to have to be the standout. They're also going to need probably a heat check guy, and they have that as well with Bogdanovich, but he's got to make shots. So, if If it was the Miami Heat, I'd probably feel a little bit better against a Boston Celtics team, them possibly upsetting them, mainly because they did it last year. And they're a better team this year than last year, on paper at least, or the regular season, with Jaquez killing it. I mean, that's a huge addition in that team. So for the Knicks, it's really that for me. Good, you got OG and Obi back. That's great. It needed to happen. But this team isn't going anywhere without the production and possibly a step up from Julius Randle. Not going anywhere. Brunson is not good enough to overcome that. He needs help. So does any player, but mainly him, considering his size and considering what he would be going against. Now, if he was going against Milwaukee, I'd feel a little bit differently. But if he's going against Boston in the second round against Drew Holiday, I don't really see him dominating the series. This is my opinion. The other basketball team in town, Brooklyn Nets, my team, my favorite team, out of all the teams I root for, this is my team. It's a very depressing time right now. Very depressing. Because this team, and I've talked about this team enough, and I just want to talk just a little bit more. The Brooklyn Nets lost to the Orlando Magic last night, a better Orlando Magic team. That's fine. Here's what I cannot stand. I cannot stand Mikal Bridges not being aggressive last night. Scoring 17 points, but just like barely feel it. I can't stand it. The fact that he can't guard anybody either. I can't stand losing to the Memphis Grizzlies with nobody playing. I can't stand that. What's the excuse for that? At home. I can't stand losing to the Charlotte Hornets. I can't stand losing to the Detroit Pistons. Those are three teams that you have no excuse to lose to. No excuse. You are a better team than those teams. You have better talent, and you probably don't have a better coach. I think Kevin Ollie has proven he is definitely not the new coach for this team. He's just clearly an interim. But it is clear that this team has no heart. And Nick Claxton, besides a annoying tack every once in a while after a hard dunk and trying to get people and trying to pump up the team, this team is leaderless. The only person who has any fight on this team is Dennis Schroeder and Cam Thomas. That is about it. Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and I'll give Claxton that. Claxton clearly cares. Everyone else, I like Daron Sharp as well. There are players I like on this team. Lonnie Walker I like. Okay? But the best player, I say that, I guess it's Mikal Bridges. I guess. He's supposed to be, at least. He's been given the keys to the franchise. I've said this before. If the Nets are not getting Donovan Mitchell or another star this summer, you trade Mikal Bridges for any kind of pick package you can get. Now, if you need him to possibly get one of those stars, I understand it completely. And that trade will probably be still available in the summer. But you need to trade Mikal Bridges if you do not get that star. Because this guy is not a leader. This guy is a second or third best player on a decent, good team. He's the second best player on a playoff team, third best player on a championship team caliber, probably, team. That's what he is. Very disappointed in Mikal Bridges, and I wasn't expecting this crazy year. He didn't have to make an all-star team for me to see that he could be that guy, but he had to show that he was somewhat that guy last year consistently. He's been flat out bad in parts this year, and he wants no part of it. A lot of players would kill to be given the keys to a franchise and given control and take every shot and be responsible for things. Mikal Bridges isn't that guy. He's just not. And that's enough about the Brooklyn Nets, okay? You got to fix stuff up. You got to fix stuff up this summer. Choose a direction. Either you're going down the star path or you're going down we're going to trade everybody, sell everything, get compensation, retool that way, rebuild that way. But the decision has to be made this summer, what you're going to do. You cannot bring this team back. This team has no heart. This team has more talent than that D'Angelo Russell team. No question, more talent than that team. But the heart of that Darren Williams, 8th seed, 38 win, Joe Johnson, Brook Lopez, Thaddeus Young team. That's the heart of this team. Just tired. Feels like they don't want to play anymore. because they don't have a leader. Mikal Bridges is not that guy. Moving up next, somewhat decent news for the New York Yankees after the horrifying scare that we were told on Sunday when we thought Garrett Cole could possibly be out for the season. That is not the case yet. I'm still anxious to see if this report has any validity or if it's John Heyman getting it from Scott Boras, who doesn't want to tell people that Garrett Cole could be possibly out for the season. He does not have a torn UCL. Tommy John is not necessary at this point. However, he's going to another doctor, probably to get another opinion of either good news, better news, or worse news, whatever. He's at least going to miss 1 to 2 months, at least. I pray he's back in the summer. I just need him for the World Series run or playoffs. That's all I need him for. I know that's a lot to ask maybe, but I think it feels good that, okay, if we knew it was Tommy John, if we knew he was out for the season, we would know already. Okay. I'm not going to rule it out completely. He may come back, suck, and then he needs surgery. Very possible. However, this is important because the Yankees needed another pitcher, even with Garrett Cole. And now Dylan Cease is in San Diego. Probably because you didn't want to give up Spencer Jones, which I agree. Don't give up Spencer Jones, especially with the possibility that this is a 1-year rental of Juan Soto. Now, it shouldn't be. You should execute. You're the New York Yankees, for God's sakes. You can extend Juan Soto. Okay. But this team needs another starting pitcher, even with Garrett Cole. Now, this is why I didn't want to wait to the deadline. Now, could Dylan Cease still be available? I mean, he's got control on him. I don't know why. Maybe San Diego may stink. I don't think San Diego will be terrible. You know, they still got talent. But this is why I don't like waiting to the trade deadline. I said this. I knew something like this would happen. Dylan Cease getting traded before the season. I guess you wait for maybe Shane Bieber. Trevor Bauer's off the table, it looks like. You're going to sign Blake Snell? You're going to sign Jordan Montgomery? That doesn't look like it's going to happen. What's the plan to get another starter? I don't like waiting to the trade deadline when it's clear that you still can add somebody now. I liked the Marcus Stroman signing. I liked it. But, you know, they need another one. And the depth isn't even great. Even if they signed another starter, you still don't love the depth of the New York Yankees starting rotation. You don't like the 7th, 8th, 9th guy to get them through the season. Like, you just don't, the 6th, 7th, 8th, all that. Like, Clark Schmidt would be that for teams. I like Clark Schmidt. You don't know what you're going to get from Rodon. You don't know what you're going to get from Cortez. Marcus Stroman did not end the season great last year. Hopefully he's healthy. And now you're not going to have Garrett Cole for the next 2 months. I just pray he makes it back in the summer. And the Yankees, with a much better lineup, that is not denying, they have a much better lineup than last year. And even with, inconsistency from the starting rotation last season, them being so brutal offensively was the big reason why they won 82 games. And not a lot. This lineup should be way better. With Verdugo, hopefully improvement from Volpe, Juan Soto, Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge, the news, he's supposed to come back Saturday. Hopefully that's not a huge issue, the abdomen injury. Hopefully it continues to be okay. However, you worry with Judge at center, it could aggravate, or the fact that he's swinging a bat all year. You hope he's okay. I liked the Yankees roster. I thought Cashman and company did a good job in the offseason, getting us excitement, us meaning Yankee fans, baseball fans, excited in an American League that is definitely open. And unless the Houston Astros lose to the Yankees. I'm always going to consider the Astros better than them. However, everybody else, the Baltimore Orioles got swept in the playoffs last year. Texas Rangers, I think, got worse. Why can't the Yankees do something this year? Well, it's going to come down to their starting rotation at this point, and the fact that they can hit at the right times. You hope Rizzo's given a good year. You hope Stanton's given a good year. But they got to prove it. Now, I believe Rizzo's more likely, but Stanton, I don't know. Very interesting. Quickly about the Mets. Edwin Diaz is back, and I wanted to talk about this because a lot of people, I think, are kind of underestimating the Edwin Diaz return for the Mets. Huge. And he looked awesome in spring training. Edwin Diaz not being on the Mets last year, not playing, not pitching, already on top of a weak bullpen. Disaster. No lead was ever in control. And that is a factor that is going to that is not going to be the case this year. If the Mets have a lead and Edwin Diaz is healthy and pitching the way anyway similar to where he was 2 years ago, the Mets will close games. And the Mets will finish games. They have enough talent in that lineup. They have enough talent who had bad years last year that probably will have better years this year. They have Pete Alonso in a contract year as well, so expect him to play great. They have enough talent to make things interesting in the National League. And I said they are a candidate to be a wild card team. The only reason why I wouldn't expect them to make the playoffs is considering the dialogue around the team. Like, they don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. But this could be like a Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, New York Giants playoff year where the new regime comes in, manager, GM, president, whatever, and makes a couple fringe additions that help the current talent there, maximize them, and see how it goes. I could totally see the Mets making the wild card this year. Completely can see it. And especially with Diaz healthy, the bullpen is better. I know the starting rotation isn't great. I know you'd rather. I know if they got Yamamoto. I know Senga's hurt. I know these things are you can look at. I know there's not a great DH there. I mean, it's better than Vogelback. You don't have to watch that anymore. But if you get a great year from Alonso, you get a good year from Lindor. Bader, I like. Right? You improved your. You hope to get something out of Marte, McNeil. Hope Alvarez can step up even more. You hope you get something at third base. Hope Nimmo comes back and has a great year. There's still a lot of talent on the Mets to be an interesting, fun team. And I like that. And I think people aren't recognizing the Edwin Diaz return enough. Because that was a huge issue for the Mets, was the fact that their bullpen and closer weren't good. I mean, David Robinson had a good year no matter what. That was about it. Brooks Raley was okay. Other than that, it's pretty brutal. So expect the Mets to be better for sure this year. That's my assumption. And God, I just hope the Yankees, because Juan Soto killing it in spring training makes me worry he's going to suck at the beginning of the year and then he's going to get booed and then blah, 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 but he'll eventually return. But I just want to see both baseball teams competent and competitive this year. And for the Yankees case, World Series contention. There's no excuse to not be. Cashman has to get another starter. Just has to. Okay, you have to capitalize on this year. You just do. Okay, talked about the baseball teams, talked about the basketball team. Lastly, just quickly, some hockey. The New Jersey Devils, quickly, I talked about them a lot last time. Clearly, the new coaching change isn't doing anything. I guess they're showing a little bit more energy. They made a couple trades, got a couple goaltenders that probably won't be there or will be the backup next year. Vitek Vanecek's gone. Kira Schmidt, Nico Dawes, they're not ready. Tom Fitzgerald said that. Listen, they're going to have to go on some crazy run if they want to be competitive, want to possibly make the playoffs, and they haven't done that. These games have been closer. Games versus Carolina, games versus the Rangers, they've been closer, but they're still not what you want to see. And you know, I'm going to continue to reiterate, it's still a really young team. They took a step back this year, very normal for young teams. Important not to freak out, but they need a goaltender. And it looks like Fitzgerald is going to go big game hunting for a goaltender. And with the trade from Tyler Toffoli um, to the Winnipeg Jets, you can't rule out him possibly returning in the offseason. And to the Devils making a Stanley Cup run with the Winnipeg Jets and then possibly coming back in the offseason. All I know is that it just seems like this year Fitzgerald made a lot of moves at the deadline to kind of just see what the summer, to prepare for the summer, because this team clearly needs more work and they're not mature enough to be consistently a perennial playoff contender, clearly. Um, you know, we'll see what happens. But that's really all I got to say about the Devils. Clearly, and see what they do with the coaching. That's another big deal. Next, the New York Islanders and New York Rangers are going to be the two hockey teams that are going to basically completely take over the end here. The Islanders have been on a streak. I know they lost to the Kings recently, but they are in the playoffs, in that playoff hunt. And they have looked really good. And they fired the coach earlier this year, and they just look way better. And the hope is that they can slide in. It's nice to see, because for a while it kind of looked and it's good to see them back. Now the Rangers are Stanley Cup contenders. They've been consistently great all year. And with their goaltending, that's awesome, and everything that they've got going on. It just looks like they're going to be in the hunt and for possibly a big run. And by far, until the Yankees prove that they're better, they're the best team in New York. And same with the Knicks. Unless the Knicks prove that they're better, the Rangers are the team in town that is the closest to possibly bringing a championship to the New York area. And it'll be fascinating to see. I hate the Rangers. I hate them. I can acknowledge and respect a team that's good. And this Rangers team is good. Big time. So that's enough for, and then, by the way, St. John's plays just a little bit on the Big East tournament. Villanova almost losing to DePaul. Oh, man. Kyle Neptune, I don't know if he could have survived that. That would have been atrocious. DePaul might be considered, I've seen some people say this, might be considered the worst team in Big East history. And they almost beat Villanova in the first round of the Big East tournament. I was watching, I will be prepared to watch, I'm taping this 1:34 Eastern time right now as we speak. And the St. John's Seton Hall game is at 2:30. And if St. John's wins, they basically, from what I've seen in bracketology, guarantee themselves in the tournament. Seton Hall can still make the tournament, even if they lose to St. John's because of their big wins versus UConn. But St. John's absolutely needs to win this. And credit to St. John's, man, for like the look 14-12 at one point and finishing with 5 straight wins, going 19-12 to end the regular season, going into the Big East tournament. One more win versus Seton Hall, and you're in. And considering that the first game versus Seton Hall was at Prudential Center, Patino wasn't there due to COVID. They got blown out. Weird game. Fine. UBS Arena, they're up 18, but it's UBS Arena. It's not Madison Square Garden. And they blow that lead. Not giving them excuses. I'm just saying it's hard to beat a great coach like Patino 3 times in a season, especially when Patino has St. John's playing their best basketball now. Now, last game versus Georgetown was a little concerning, not going to lie, because Georgetown isn't the good. And a disastrous year for Ed Cooley in his first year with Georgetown. I mean, Patrick Ewing, I believe, has had a better record 4 of his 6 seasons at Georgetown. That just shows you. And I don't think Providence is sweating over losing Cooley, considering that, nothing's really changed. Although I was happy to see St. John's respond the way they did. And win or lose today, I'll be disappointed if they lose, no doubt. But win or lose today, I still feel good about things with the program. They're introducing the idea of a new practice facility on campus. which, is needed. And with Patino, I have St. John's winning this game. And if St. John's loses, maybe, I know they're supposed to look at metrics and stuff. I don't know if the NCAA will omit Rick Pitino. I think they like him in the tournament, but that's not how you want to get in, where you're just, crossing your fingers and hoping. You want to get in sincerely. So good for St. John's. You got to win today, though. And by the time this is up, you'll know if they won or lost. But, I'm not going to do a post game. Next. Lastly, I want to talk about the Oscars. I want to react to some of the the awards. And with the Oscars this year, I didn't watch all of it, but from what I gathered and from what I saw, most people enjoyed the Oscars this year. They were short. The monologues were pretty good. Jimmy Kimmel gets a lot of hate. He got a lot of hate for the Robert Downey Jr. joke. To me, there was just a lot of people who can't take a joke. Similar to a lot of the celebs there. Listen, man, like Robert Downey Jr. went on David Letterman shortly after his drug issues, and they talked about it and they laughed about it in some cases. You have to have some sense of humor about that. I understand what Robert Downey Jr. went back then was truly terrible, and addiction is a terrible thing. But he is an incredible actor, and he's the highest he's ever been in his career at this point. And it's good for him. And Jimmy Kimmel's joke was not tasteless. I mean, these celebrities should be able to laugh at themselves. And I think Downey took it fine. I mean, people were really upset, though, with Kimmel. Like, how could you joke about that? It's just like, I mean, people joke about stuff like that all the time. I thought it was completely fine. I thought Kimmel was pretty decent. The John Cena thing, a lot of people were really upset about that, too. Because, to me, it was just stupid. It's just like, who cares? But just a couple, I just want to react to the awards. So Oppenheimer swept, basically. It's exactly what I was expecting. And I'm just going to go through each category and go through each win and react to it. But let's just say, was not shocked at all that Oppenheimer was getting so much love. All right, performance by an actor in a leading role. This was won by Cillian Murphy. This was not a shocker. To me, he had only one candidate, really, that maybe could have won. And it was Paul Giamatti in The Holdovers. Paul Giamatti's in The Holdovers was a brilliant performance, and he probably would have won the Oscar in any other year. Oppenheimer, though, considering it was the biggest movie that wasn't Barbie, and Christopher Nolan and the cast and Cillian Murphy was just so perfect as him. And it just seemed like, and listen, Cillian Murphy, it is a brilliant performance. It was very difficult. The thing is that Cillian Murphy's kind of doing, he is a real person to base himself off of. Paul Giamatti's kind of, I think, playing an exaggerated version of himself, but created a new character that I really liked. And The Holdovers is still a brilliant movie, and it got some recognition. Not enough, I think, but just some recognition that I really applauded and liked. Performance by an actor in a supporting role. This was run by Robert Downey Jr. That's where you heard the jokes and all this stuff. But listen, Robert Downey Jr. deserved this. He got his first Oscar, and I am so happy for him. And Mark Ruffalo was great in Poor Things. Ryan Gosling in Barbie. Sterling K. Brown, American Fiction. De Niro, Killers of the Flower Moon, was very, very good. Very different role than he's used to playing. Robert Downey Jr. in Oppenheimer, to me was incredible. It was a mix of this charm and interesting role that he's never played before. And I really liked it. But he also added some of those Downey charms to it, and I loved it. Performance by an actress in a leading role. Everybody, this was the biggest shocker of the night, easily. Everyone thought Lily Gladstone was going to win. And rightfully so. Emma Stone won, and she deserves it. Don't get me wrong, Lily Gladstone is good. But I will say, the reaction to Lily Gladstone's performance in Killers of the Flower Moon was a little much for me. Not saying it wasn't good or anything, but people acted like it was sometimes was the best performance since sliced bread. And it was good. It was very good, and it was necessary, and considering the role that she needed to play and the character she was playing. That's not the best female performance I saw this year. It just wasn't. Emma Stone's was better. To be honest, I didn't even like the movie. I didn't even like Maestro. I thought Carey Mulligan was great. In Maestro, by far the best part of Maestro to me. Not even Bradley Cooper. And Sandra Hüller in Anatomy of a Fall, incredible performance there. I did not see Annette Bening's performance, so I don't have a comment on that. But Lily Gladstone got a lot of praise, and good for her, great for her. I'm not bringing her down. But then someone like Leonardo DiCaprio didn't seem to get any recognition, and I thought he was amazing. I thought he was incredible, and so I'm not here to bring her down. Good for her. Good for Lily Gladstone. She got a lot of attention. She's going to get a lot of work from this, and she deserves it. She was not the best performance I saw in Killer this year in movies, and I'm just being real, just being honest. It's just that simple. And I was happy that Emma Stone was nominated because I thought she deserved it. I would have been happy too if Lily Gladstone won it, but I would have been cool with it. But I just feel like there were better performances, and Emma Stone was one of them. Performance by an actress in a supporting role. They definitely got this right. I love Emily Blunt. She is my favorite actress, but there's no question Divine Joy Randolph deserved this. And her speech, man, her Oscar speech is one of my favorite Oscar speeches. She was so great in The Holdovers, and she was so great in this speech. And I hope she gets more stuff, man. I really do. She's so great. She's so great. And just seeing her speech it reminded me a lot of Ki Hoi Kwan's speech last year. It was that great, and I loved it. And I was happy to I was just so happy to see that. Even though I love Emily Blunt, this was the first time she was nominated for an Oscar, which is kind of crazy. She will definitely get one. She's an amazing actress, and I'm excited for the Fall Guy that's going to come out soon. Best animated feature of the year, The Boy and the Heron one. I did not watch The Boy and the Heron. Elemental was nominated. I also did not see it, but that was, I think, shocking for some people. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, I think a lot of people thought was going to win this. But I mean, there's nothing. I still haven't seen it, but there's nothing wrong losing to Hayao Miyazaki's film. There's just nothing. There's just nothing wrong with that. Just another thing too that was interesting. Barbie was nominated for 8 awards, and it really felt like the Academy was really pissed off at the backlash that they received from Barbie not being nominated for even more awards. If Barbie was nominated for 10 awards, that's kind of crazy. It ain't that good, people. I mean, listen, Barbie wasn't for me personally, but I acknowledge that, it was well told and was well made, but 10 awards. If you're assuming that it gets nominated for best director and best actress, Margot Robbie's good, right? Greta Gerwig did a good job. The other people nominated were better. In fact, Alexander Payne not getting nominated for director was more of a miss, in my opinion, or Greta Lee being snubbed for I believe her name is Greta Lee, right? Yeah. Greta Lee being snubbed for Past Lives, I thought was a bigger Oscar snub than Margot Robbie. Margot Robbie gave a better performance in Babylon. She had more to work with, and it was a more interesting character, more interesting performance. Very different than what she's ever done, but not everybody loved Babylon, so there you go. Although Babylon fans, we exist and we're out there. Love that movie. So that was Barbie winning for best song made sense. I mean, it had 2 nominees there. It had I'm Just Ken, and it had Billie Eilish's song. Okay, you can have that one for sure. You can get that one. But the people acting like Barbie was treated poorly at the Academy was pretty crazy. I mean, the fact that I got 8 nominations is pretty good. Um, Best visual effects. It was nice to see Godzilla -1 on there. I'm not really sure why it wasn't nominated for best international film, considering the budget and how impressive that movie is. But Godzilla -1 was I wasn't expecting it to win. I thought maybe the creator was going to get this, maybe Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, but Godzilla -1 winning, that's awesome. Great to see that. Um, Best, what was it? Best adapted screenplay. This was shocking that Oppenheimer didn't win. I did not see American Fiction. I heard great things, but American Fiction, considering Oppenheimer won all these other awards and it didn't win a Best Adapted Screenplay, it's just like, what's the thought process there? That's kind of confusing. Like, it is based off a book. So, I mean, that was fascinating to me. Best original screenplay, Anatomy of a Fall. I agreed with this. Um, because I've been seeing some plagiarism stuff with the holdovers. Because then I would say the holdovers maybe, but when I started seeing that, I was like, okay, Anatomy of a Fall was a fascinating screenplay. And considering if you watch that movie, what side you're on, what do you think happened, whatever, it was just really investing the entire time, and it was very well written court drama. So it was not shocking to see that, and I was glad it got some recognition for that. Best original score, Oppenheimer definitely was the right decision. Cinematography was Oppenheimer. Makeup and hairstyling. This is one I thought was going to go to Poor Things, and it did. So that was interesting. Um, Best costume design. This one I thought was going to go to Barbie for sure, and I thought it had a case big time, considering the world that Greta Gerwig bring up. So I'll say like them being snubbed for this made sense, but Poor Things clearly got a lot of traction for the Academy, and they won Best Costume Design. So I don't think that was a bad choice, but I was shocked Barbie did not win that big time. Best production design. Another one thought Barbie was going to get this. It ended up being Poor Things. Very similar. Barbie sets were pretty insane. Now they probably wasn't chosen because maybe Barbie just had more to go off of with their production design. There's a lot of Barbie inspired things, so they kind of didn't have to be too original with it. But it was very interesting to see that Barbie did not win those because I thought Barbie had a decent chance of winning those. Best film editing, Oppenheimer. Clearly the right decision. It's a 3-hour movie that's paced perfectly. You have to credit the editing there. Just incredible. Best sound. This was interesting. I have not seen The Zone of Interest, so I don't know. But best sound did not go to Oppenheimer and went to Zone of Interest. And Oppenheimer, it could have just been a situation where, hey, we're giving Oppenheimer way too many awards. Let's just cool it. I just think Oppenheimer was that good, personally. I know people said it was too long, and I just disagree completely. I thought it was too long the first time I watched it, but then the second time after rewatch, it was absolutely fine for me, and it got better. And that movie has set Christopher Nolan up for superstardom right now as a director. And not to say he wasn't before, but just now, definitely. Him getting his first Oscar, which was so great to see. Wes Anderson getting his first Oscar for his short film on Netflix was also nice to see, although he wasn't there for it because he's working on his new film right now. I still want to see Wes Anderson get credit for maybe a feature. Last thing I wanted to just talk about is Bradley Cooper and Maestro not receiving any recognition. I didn't care for Maestro. I struggled to see why Cooper was nominated over, say, DiCaprio for Killers of the Flower Moon. So I wasn't, listen, I'm not happy to see Downfall. I was just kind of like, it was refreshing a little bit to see that Maestro was not really recognized. It was nominated for a bunch of things, didn't win anything. Killers of the Flower Moon didn't win anything. I thought it was going to win for Lily Gladstone. But everything else, maybe cinematography as well. But that was really it for Killers of the Flower Moon while very good, did not, as far as each category, did not give a better did not prove better than the other nominees. Martin Scorsese, continue making movies, man. This guy is amazing. We're gonna love these movies until he's older. So we gotta hope he can make as many of these great movies as possible. Although it is kind of crazy that Scorsese's been nominated several times for The Irishman, um, uh, Silence, and Killers of the Flower Moon, and Wolf of Wall Street, and it hasn't received any recognition really from the Academy other than nominations. Wolf of Wall Street is the big one. Like, that movie's a classic. And the fact that it's not nominated is crazy. The fact that Martin Scorsese's only Oscar is The Departed is pretty nuts, too. But another one was Goodfellas. Didn't get recognized really for that either. But that was really it. My thoughts on the Oscars. I thought it was a pretty good year for movies, man. Honestly, like, I know we get too hung up on what's going on with the strikes and Disney and big blockbusters, Hollywood, and all that stuff. But as far as like some movies that came out last year, if you want to go back and look at my top 10 films of the year with my buddy Contos, we talked about there's some pretty good movies came out this year, and I'm excited for this year as well. And I still haven't seen Dune 2 yet. I'm going to see Dune 2 soon, and I'm excited to see that as well. It's one of my most anticipated. Pretty good Oscars. Like, pretty good. I mean, I think last year, Everything Everywhere All at Once being a good movie, like Oppenheimer, I don't think people are going to be looking back at this year's Oscars and be like, they got it wrong. If anything, I think they got it right. They were pretty on the money here. Good for them. Oscars, you did a good job this year. And that's my reaction. That is going to be today's episode of the JB Podcast. I'm going to talk to you guys again soon, next week, and I'll see you then.